What's up? This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast, and I'm your host, Sean Dustin. A couple of announcements before we get to this show. The Con episode 1, you can catch tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Watch it free. Go to thecon.tv/event or to the link below in the description. Or you can go, there it is right there. Next, what I got is you can catch the last podcast that I did with Ricky Verandis and myself, talk to the producer of the Con, Patrick Lovell. It was a really good episode and a conversation. You can check that out. Also, the link is below. All the ways to connect to the show. Other podcasts that I've been on as a guest, also direct links to iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and all social media links. Check out the Linktree link in the description, and you can catch it there. Also, Patreon is up. If you want to help support the show, one of the ways that you can do this is to become a Patreon. And there's a couple of different levels of support that you can give over there. So also there will be links in the description as well. And then one other thing that I'm looking for is if anybody out there knows a retired AUSA, or if you don't know what that means, a federal prosecutor, a retired federal prosecutor that's willing to come on my show and talk to me about conspiracy law in regards to the federal system. So, to my guest today, we are talking with Richard Midkiff, and let me get this off here real quick. And Richard had served 23 years on a 39-year bid for murder when he was 17. He's currently he got released on a new law change that allowed minors to, or actually it allowed the courts or the convicted to be able to go back and petition the courts to review their case on long sentences. I think that's how I believe I read it. But I'm going to let Richard tell you his story and why we're actually here. Richard, good morning.
Good morning. How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing great.
Thank you for having me on your show, and thank you to all the listeners for taking their time to hear my story. A few things, and I know that there's been a lot of information that's been put out there about my situation. I was actually 19, and my co-defendant was 17. What happened back in 1996, both of us were just in a bad place. Both of us were, on drugs, not living at home, just really bad place for two young people to be. And not to minimize what we did, I accept responsibility for my actions that day. But what occurred was I drove my co-defendant, who was 17, to a drug dealer's house so he could rob him. And when he went in there, they got in a fight, and a struggle ensued, and a gun went off, and the drug dealer ended up dying. We were subsequently arrested and charged with felony murder. And anybody that doesn't know about felony murder, whenever in the state of Florida, whenever you participate in an underlying felony and somebody dies, all parties are charged with first-degree murder. That's where I found myself in 1996. And eventually we secured a plea agreement for second-degree murder so that I could have some type of date to go home. Later on that year, my co-defendant also took a plea that was structured off of the same plea I had. However, there was an additional caveat placed in his plea at the insistence of the family, and that is that he would serve along with the more culpable person in this offense. As the years went by and he attempted to litigate through the courts, this is what they said to him, is we have a quid pro quo agreement with you and the co-defendant, and if we reduce your sentence or let you out or do anything like that, it will violate his rights. So fast forward now to 2018, and he has an opportunity to file for a resentencing and a judicial review based on new juvenile laws. And he goes to that. And even in that hearing, the state attorney said, well, wait a minute, this is going to be unfair to Midkiff. We may need to go look at that. And the judge proceeded to resentence my co-defendant and release him. When I found out, I prepared a motion to enforce the stipulation in the plea agreement, and the judge brought me back to court. She agreed with me. My attorneys obviously agreed with me. However, the assistant state attorney assigned to my case did not agree with me. So we had a hearing on it, and at the end of the day, the judge recognized that there was an agreement, there was a meeting of the minds here, and she released me a year ago after serving 23 years in prison. And I came home, and it's not that I came home free. I came home with 15 years probation. So I come out, and this is where I find myself. And a lot of people just with probation alone, they can't handle the pressures of it. I'm dealing with that, and I'm dealing with it well. But then I also have an appeal that the state filed against me. Both of these things going on at the same time as I'm trying to build my life and create a business and continue to help people like I was doing in prison. And I've been successful at all of that since I've come home.
Yeah, one of the things that I found interesting, and when I listened to James Jones's interview with you, is that you gave a really detailed description of your story in that as well. You were a product of a poor upbringing, basically.
Yeah.
You were a childhood abuse, physical abuse, witnessing your mother, being abused as well. So you really. The one thing, being an addict myself and somebody who struggled with that and grew up in an abusive household as well, it's trauma, trauma, and it really, you don't know what's going to cause the trauma and how it's going to manifest itself in a child's life or a person's life. And for you, it manifested itself in that way, right? And also too, that like when you were doing your time, you had no idea that any of this was even going to transpire. And from the beginning of your sentence, it sounds like, once you got there, you kind of had a clear idea of what you wanted to do with your time. And, you executed that perfectly, actually, as somebody who's been incarcerated and knows that there's not many people, and James said it great, there's not many people that are going to get in there and start thinking about how they can help other people. Most of the time they get in there, they either, depending on their level of support on the outside and what kind of a system you're in, if you're in a state system, you can, sometimes you can have TVs and all this other stuff. And there are guys literally that will never leave their room and just watch TV and just go to chow or their job or whatever, and they just stay away. So to be able to, do what you've done, which you've started a couple of organizations while you were in there, programs and other stuff to help other inmates get out or help them with things like financing, knowing how to, you said it perfectly when you explained it. I'm going to screw it up. So why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about that, because that's the most important thing. You have exercised and shown that you've changed. What more could you do? Than you've already done. I think you've far exceeded anybody's expectations.
So I want to go back to my childhood, because, being a victim of child abuse and a witness to domestic violence abuse against my mother, it shaped me in a way. And when I was in 4th or 5th grade, and so much of that stuff from my childhood I blocked out, but I had a stepfather that literally almost beat me to death. And, so that really messes with the kid's head. And in the following years, 7th grade, I found myself with nowhere to live, not knowing how to eat. And it's ironic because my whole 7th grade year, I can remember a girl that I went to school with bought me lunch every day at school. And I've thought about it for years. And outside of that, I don't remember eating anything else. I'm sure I did, but it was just that kindness. This this little girl knew I was going through something, but she didn't know what I was going through. And she had mercy for me. She had grace for me. When I turned to drugs, you know, kids look for that positive affirmation from their mom or their dad or their guardian, whoever it is that's over them. And if you don't find that, you're going to find it somewhere else. And that's what I did. And it was ironic because when I first used drugs, I was like, oh, wow, all my problems are gone. So I felt good. And it has been a long time since I felt good. But being a kid and not really understanding the impact and ramifications of drug use on a child and the impact it has on your rational, your judgment making, your growth, your maturity, all of these different things I had to learn later when I was a man, and I had to realize why it was I was using drugs. And all it was for me was an escape. It was an escape from my reality. And every time I used drugs, it seemed like everything was good until I sobered up. Then everything was bad, but it was worse because more problems come. And it just kept snowballing. And it took me some time to really understand the why in that. And when I was arrested, it was that first moment in my life where I said, no matter what comes of this, I'm gonna make something of my life. I have no education. I can barely read, write, count, all of that. I can barely do any of that. But I'm gonna do something here. And I spent 3 years in the county jail waiting to go to prison. And I spent that time reading and trying to do all I could. And in county jail, there's really not anything for somebody that's in there in a max 1 cell. So I get to prison and I'm like, okay, I want to do something, but I don't know what, and I'm just a kid. So I spent my time educating myself because, again, when you get into prison with a long sentence, there's no programs available to you. So my best friends became books. I started studying history and politics and literature and math and all these different things that I neglected in school. I finally got to a place where I could get my GED, and I secured my GED in 2004 at Avon Park Correctional Institution. But then I was told, well, you can't go in a vocation because you have too much time. So we went back and forth on that, and it was at this time that I decided, I was like, you know what, I'm going to teach myself how to trade stocks. Because my thinking was, well, I'm going to be in here for a long time, and I need to have and be able to do something when I get out. And really, who's going to want to hire me? So I need to figure out a way to be self-sufficient, be able to provide for myself. I started teaching myself stocks, and it took a couple years, and I saved up a little money, and I got into the markets. And that's how I was able to support myself while I was in prison and send money home to help my family. Because that was important to me because I have these little nieces and nephews coming into the world, and I know what world they're coming into with my family. And that's something that's always bothered me, and I've always tried to mentor them and tell them, listen, there's a better way, get your education. And I'm so proud to say that all the young nieces and nephews in my family right now are all straight A students. They're all looking to go to college and breaking that cycle and breaking that chain of addiction that plagues my family. So I'm sitting in prison in 2007. I get transferred to an institution called Marion Correctional Institution. It's over in Ocala. And I get there and I'm like, wow, what am I going to do here? So one of my friends suggests, he's like, why don't you get a job in the law library? You know, you're a smart guy. I was like, well, get a job in there. And there's a gentleman that worked in there as a senior law clerk named Ron Baker. And he took me under his wing. He started mentoring me. And we started working on cases together and building things. And a few years after that, he goes home, and now I'm the senior law clerk. And I looked at him like, okay, what can we do to make this law library the best law library? So we started doing additional training with the clerks. We started looking at ways that we can give the inmate population tools, access, and resources to help them. I got an idea after that where we wanted to turn the library into like a media station, like an educational hub for the institution. In 2015, I got the pleasure of being under the supervision of Warden Kim Chris Sutherland. And she was very program oriented. She was of the mindset to treat the inmate population as humanely as possible. 2015, I approached her with an idea to start a program called Storytime Dads. And I explained to her what I wanted to do. She gave me 5 minutes to pitch it to her. And in a nutshell, my idea was to record fathers reading children books to their kids. And then we'll burn the video to DVD and send both the book and DVD home to their kid at no cost to the Department of Corrections, no cost to the father inmate, and no cost to the family. So everything was on a donation base, and I got with different attorneys and different people I knew in the community, and they supported me in this. So it was such an amazing thing watching people, and you've been incarcerated, so you know the bravado that everybody puts on. You know the outward appearance that you put on to look tough, to look hard. And I'm watching these guys come in there, and I'm watching all that melt away as they spend time with their kids in this video. And I have a highlight video of this on my Justice for Richard Midkiff page if anybody wants to see it. It's truly an amazing experience, because I started to see that most of the people that are in prison never had anybody read a children's book to them when they were a kid. So now that they're reading a children's book to their kid, it's like they are vicariously living that out through their own reading to their kid. And then I got to see something else where it started bridging the damage that was done by the father coming to prison, by the father not being there in the child's life. And it all hit home for me on Christmas Day, 2015, when a little girl came up to me and said to me, I just wanted to thank you for making it so my daddy could read to me. And I'm looking around, and it was just so powerful, because now I say, okay, this is really what's important, helping people, you know, rebuilding damaged lives. And I really took on that mantle that I can do something no matter what, whether I'm in prison or whether I'm out, I can still do something to be a benefit to other people. And that's what I've strived to live my life to be. I made terrible choices in my youth, and I'm never going to minimize that or take the easy way out and say, oh, this was just one bad choice. It was choice after choice after choice, week after week, year after year, that led me down to this. So now I want to make choice after choice, week after week, year after year, being the best me I can possibly be for humanity, for society. And that's been my life mission. In 2016, they allowed me to start a program called SAGE. And SAGE is a personal development program that teaches about 14 classes a week to the inmate population, where people from the surrounding community come in to teach these classes. So we have people that are real estate agents, we have branch managers from banks coming in. We do seminars where people who write books come in and they talk about the process of what you have to do to write and publish a book. We do financial classes, communication classes, reflective listening classes. We have people from the suicide hotline came in and taught a class on conflict resolution, how to effectively listen to somebody who's going through it. Because in prison, there's a lot of people going through a lot of things. And it's not just the fact that they have a criminal case, it's they've lost a loved one, their wife has left them, they're having health issues, all these things come up. So they say that the person closest to the problem is the one best suited to fix that problem. And I took that to heart. At the same time the SAGE program was going on, Warden Sutherland asked me if I would create a career resource center in the library. We created that specifically geared to help inmates that were 6 months from going home. And at the time, I've got like 25 years, and I want these men to go out and succeed. I want these men to go out and be successful and not come back to prison. Because, you know, whether people like it or not, the majority of people in prison at some point in their life are going to be released. So these people are going to be bagging your groceries. They could be cutting your grass. So what type of neighbors do we want? What type of citizens do we want? And that kind of like became the focus of why I was doing the things I was doing, to try to truthfully help give these guys the tools they needed to succeed while they were in prison, so that they would have the tools to succeed when they got out of prison. The SAGE program, Storytime Dads, the Career Resource Center, all of these programs are still operational at Marion CI. And, I've been gone a year, and the guys are still pushing and still doing everything they can to help other people. So that's how I did my time in prison.
Yeah, that's a great the one the reentry program that you're talking about, the personal development one, because this podcast started out as a personal development podcast, and then it kind of like turned into whatever it is now. They take on a life of their own sometimes, or maybe I think it took on the life of my personality. And so like my interests and things that I'm into, along with the personal development and telling other people's stories and stuff like that, as where I'm at. But to your point with the model that you created there, I'm actually trying to, I've done the articles of incorporation to start a nonprofit, and I want to do it as a reentry. Same thing, for people coming out that, maybe don't get exposed to a program like you have there, because it's just in Marion. It's not like it's been modeled and dropped into every state facility. And I think it's important because when you do go to prison, the rehabilitation is what you put into it. And
that's true.
You know what I mean? And it's, if you don't come in with any discipline, which most of us don't, the whole reason why I got in so much trouble is I had no discipline and no supervision, and nobody to tell me don't do that, bad kid, and so you have to relearn it. And you've got, and I say this a lot because I talk to a lot of coaches and a lot of life coaches and stuff like that, and mentors, and these people are actually have jobs and are in life and doing things, right? They've gone past the starting point, and they're in their life, and they need mentors and coaches. So why wouldn't somebody who's starting way behind the starting line, coming out, sometimes 20 years into a technology that like, where do you start?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And
I absolutely know what you mean.
So, I mean, we need that. That's important. So if all works out for you, and I hope it does, and I'm praying that the people that are behind you, the voices that have thrown, that you have in your corner, from senators to other respected members of the community that are pulling for you, hopefully that's enough to keep you out, and to you figure out a way out of this, whether it's either through clemency or a commutation of sentence or whatever it is. Hopefully it works out, because you, and James said it perfectly again, that you are worth more, like you can do more good from out here than you can from in there.
Absolutely. It's what you said is so true. I spent 23 years in prison, and I come home to smartphones and tablets and just all of this stuff, so overwhelming. When I first came home, I took a deep breath, and coming out, I had a great support group. God really blessed me with some people that he put in my life along my journey, who have just been there to help me every step of the way. When I came out, those same people were there. And there's also a network that we have of people who get out of prison, that we were all in prison together. And it's all the successful people that stay connected and support each other and help each other. When I came out, my mentor, he started the MCI alumni group on Facebook, and it was really cool because there was I'd say about 18, 20 of us who had gotten out in the last 10 years that now have businesses, families, giving back to the community, volunteering in jails and prisons, volunteering in churches, volunteering in schools. And we had a big barbecue to celebrate this, because nobody hears the success stories. Nobody hears about the guy who got out, started his own business, and now he has 10 employees under him. All they hear about is the guy who reoffends, and it's on the 6 o'clock news, and everybody's, well, why'd he get out? But nobody hears that. So I want people to hear the success stories. And when I came home, My 8th day out, I started working full-time as a paralegal with Prisoner Connections. And it's a paralegal support group company that offers affordable legal assistance through attorneys to the inmate population on their post-conviction and appellate proceedings. So the work that I did in there in the law library, I continue to do out here, helping people. I've been doing that full time, and then I became president of an organization called LEA. And LEA stands for Legal Empowerment Advocacy Hub. And the whole nexus of that organization is to empower the community in how to know, use, and shape the law. You know, when somebody goes to prison or somebody goes to jail, their mom, their wife, their sisters, their brothers, all these people are trying to figure out how do we help with this? How do we figure out what's going on? And they don't know how to look at a docket sheet, or they don't know how to communicate with the defense attorneys and different things like that. So the LEA organization handles that. The really cool thing is, being with LEA, we're also in partnership with NYU School of Law's Jailhouse Lawyer Initiative, and I work as an advisor to the law students there on how to interpose leadership principles into their law clerk training manual that they're going into the prisons and teaching. Just recently, we started that same partnership with Florida State University College of Law, and we're working in unison with NYU and NFSU to accomplish the same thing, to give people the tools to know how to really utilize the law, to know their way around the law library. It's been a great experience. I've been invited to FSU and NYU to speak on panels about my story and telling them what I did in prison to where I am now. So the same me I was in prison is the same me I am now. And I've just continued to try to grow and expand to help as many people as possible. We have a open arms that people get out of Marion regularly and go to. And every time somebody goes there, I think they wrote my number on the wall or something, because they text me and they're like, "Hey man, how's it going?" And I'm good. So I was like, "Look, can I come by and see you? Can I take you out to lunch? And what do you need? Do you need some clothes? Do you need hygiene? You know, what can I do to help you get on your feet the best I can?" And to me, it's worth it, taking the money to do that, to help somebody, because somebody did it for me. I want to give back, and I want to keep that cycle going. So, you know, I'm sitting here right now, not knowing when the courts are going to rule on my motion, and that's the only reason I'm still out right now, because I have a motion pending in the court. I've had a clemency pending before the governor's office since 2014. You know, I'm asking for mercy. You know, I'm asking to look at who I've become. And you know, there's some senators that have publicly gotten behind me on this. There's former wardens in the Department of Corrections who are behind me on this. And they all agree that I'm the model of rehabilitation and what you want to see somebody as when they get out of prison. A law-abiding, tax-paying citizen who adds value to his community. And that's been my life, and that's what I do, and that's who I am. You know, people can put their best foot forward for so long, but eventually the real you is going to come out.
Yeah.
And this is the real me.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Just before you were saying that, I was going, you know, the one thing about, you know, and I've experienced this because I've been an addict, and you know, you have been as well, but your authentic self, you know, people will, you know, can usually fool you for maybe, I don't know, a month, 2 months. 90 days is about the point where if that's not who you really are,
yeah,
you'll start to see blind spots in their personality, or chinks in their armor. Yeah. And in about around 6 months, you're going to really know if that's who that person is. Then that's who all of this other, you know, stuff won't even be there, because you're just authentic, and you know, what you see is what you get. And you know, that's a perfect way to be. So what is your like, I mean, I know I know how you're feeling from the perspective is that I've had to self-surrender before, but like I knew I was only going for 90 days, right? So it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, all right, well, I mean, that's cool. It's gonna suck, but you know, I'll be back. I'll be home soon. But you're facing what, 10 years left on your sentence?
Yeah, another decade in prison. And you know, it's unconscionable for me to even wrap my head around it, where it was very specific when my co-defendant and I were sentenced, and the judge was very specific when he spoke it on the record. And he was very specific when he sentenced me first and then sentenced my co-defendant to a longer sentence after me. So one of the hardest things that I've had to do since this situation has come up is go and tell my mom that I might have to go back to prison. My mom's 77 years old. She doesn't understand, you know, law, technology. My mom doesn't even know how to text. And all she could do is look at me and say, but that's not what the judge said. That's not fair. And that's so heartbreaking because, you know, my mom, I love my mom to death. She gave me life and I honor her as my mom. And that's how I've been since I've come home. Every week, I'm to see my mom. I'm helping her. I'm doing everything I can to just lighten the load a little bit. You know, she's got full custody of a 13-year-old and 11-year-old that she's had since birth because my sister's an addict. My mom's having to deal with this. Now she's having to deal with the prospect of her youngest son possibly going back to prison. And, you know, it's like I'm in this dream that I just can't wake up from.
Yeah, sorry about that. I got Richard Jones and or Joe Martinez and
a premium account's not gonna do anything for you.
Hold on a second.
They say it does, but it's nothing that
hey
that the regular account can do for you.
Hey guys.
The only difference in the premium account and the regular account is they will text you and let you know.
Hey,
when you have emails and they charge you $6.
All right, sorry about that.
For that stuff.
All these guys are supposed to be watching this. Anyways, so yeah, it's definitely dude, I couldn't imagine that, man. Like you just like, what more can you possibly do? You know, and so is it the prosecutor just, I mean, like what is the reasoning behind it? Just because this is what their interpretation of this law is, or you know, so, and
what it boils down to is them saying that because the stipulation was not specifically written on my plea agreement, then I have no right to enforce a stipulation in his plea agreement, even though the stipulation was put there in his plea agreement to protect me.
What's to gain? You know what I mean? Like usually there's something to gain. I mean, if you're already out, you know, why even mess with it? You know, obviously there was a reason why you got out, and you know, there was a deal that was done way before this person even came into the picture, through that office, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
I wish I knew that, because it truly doesn't make any sense to me. You know, I've tried to wrap my head around it. I've tried to be objective. Not an easy thing to do. You know, being this close to my own case, I tell people that come to me for help that, look, it's your job to be emotional. It's your case. It's my job to be objective and analytical. So it's really hard for me to be analytical about my own case because I'm very emotional about this.
Yeah. I understand, man. So why don't you, at your hashtag justice for Richard Midkiff, do you actually have a petition there that people can sign?
I do.
If they want to support what you're doing, or support you in the process of staying a free person?
Absolutely. You can find me at my Facebook page, Richard Midkiff, or you can go to the Justice for Richard Midkiff group And on that, there's video, there's a petition, there's articles that have been published by the Marshall Project and Florida Politics, and it'll show people, who is behind supporting me, the senators and different people that are actively trying to ensure that I don't go back to prison. And just anything anybody can do, praying, helping. I don't know what else to do. I've not really slept in a month and just been nonstop trying to figure out a way. And again, I'm not saying that I was ever wrongfully convicted or anything like that. I participated in a crime. It was a terrible crime, and somebody lost their life. I've done my best to honor my mistake by being the best citizen that I can be.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. What more can you do? I mean, in my opinion, you've gone above and beyond what most people would have ever done in your situation. You took a proactive approach to everything that you've done since you've been incarcerated, and continue that path on your, as you're out as a free person. So, I mean, yeah, I don't, I can't see them acting on this, honestly, especially with all the support that you have from people in the community, as well as elected leaders. So I'm rooting for you, man. I hope that you get out of this situation and you're allowed to continue on with your life and move on, man. You've done your time. You still, it's not like you're free. You're still going to be on probation.
Yeah.
So,
just in June 19th, I got engaged to my fiance, and we're planning our wedding for April 10th. And I just pray that I'm given the opportunity to live my life out here and show how much value I can add and have a family and have that opportunity and be in the community and continue to be a citizen that is doing all I can to help other people. I don't know what else to do. And I mean, just the thought of going back to prison right now, especially with the rising numbers of COVID in there, it's terrifying. I have a friend who just died 2 days ago from COVID-19 in prison. So that really hit home with me, and that really made me think about, my God, what am I walking into? I'm definitely not walking into the prison I left over a year ago. The whole world has changed since then. So it's a very scary time for me right now, but I'm definitely doing everything that I can to, one, maintain my status as a citizen of the state of Florida. And even in the midst of all this, I'm still doing everything as that type of citizen because I have faith in what's right. I have faith in justice. I have faith in people coming together for the right cause. If I didn't, there's no way I could do the work that I do. So I have to have faith in that. I have to believe that there's a bigger purpose for this situation going on other than me just going back to prison for another decade.
Yeah. Good point, man. I definitely appreciate your time. My platform is open to you if you ever need it for anything, regarding this, or just, something that you want to put out there and, that you're doing another program or something that you, in the future, because I imagine that's not the only thing that you're going to be doing. There's probably more in store for you if you stay out here, and not, go back to incarceration. So yeah, and I'm definitely looking forward to trying to collaborate something with you as well, and modeling what you're doing out this way, or what you'd already put into play out over here. That way we can, sort of help these guys that are getting out in California.
Absolutely. I gladly share the information and framework of the SAGE program with anybody. You know how a lot of people, they get knowledge or something and they want to keep it.
Yeah.
I want to share it with everybody. I want everybody to have the tools. I want everybody to be successful. right before I was released, I got the opportunity to start a program called Sage Prodigy. And this program is geared to deal with the young men who were 18 to 22 years old in prison. And a lot of these kids, they've been gangbanging and selling drugs and everything since they were 10, 11 years old. And now they're in prison, and you got me standing up in front of them trying to tell them why they should change and be good. And they're looking at me like, oh, man, you got to be kidding me. This guy? So I said to him, I said, well, let me ask you guys something. How many of y'all got kids? Every hand in the room went up. I said, all right. How many of y'all want your kids sitting in those chairs listening to some other, square white boy? Every hand went down. I said, okay, we've crossed the first hurdle. You love your children and you don't want them going where you're at. So let's do what we can do to fix that. And it was in that moment that I gained these young men's trust, at least a little bit, that I could build upon, because I'm being real with them. And that's what it's all about, being real with people in the situation to do everything you can to help.
Yep. And that's where it starts. I mean, if you truly want to make America great again, you have to give the Americans the tools to be able to be great, right? And that's where part of the problem lies, is that a lot of us are not. It's not that we're ignorant or we're dumb or we're anything. We're just uninformed on some of the things that are important to navigate this world and this life. And whether you want to say it was done, if you're listening to me, it was done on purpose. But if you're listening to somebody else that's a little more reasonable, they may have a different idea about it. But I mean, the bottom line is that we all lack that information. And unless you, just like in prison, unless you go out and seek out the information yourself to better yourself and make you a more informed and person or citizen, you're just going to continue to go through life sort of not feeling in dull. I guess it would be the best way that I could put it, just sort of numb, because you really don't know the information you need to know.
Yeah, that is true.
So good on you, man. I applaud your efforts and everything that you've done, when you were incarcerated to being out and all of the stuff that you're involved in. I definitely commend you, and my hats are off to you. And I hope that people out there will go to Justice for Richard Midkiff and sign the petition. I'm going to head over there as soon as I'm done here. I just got that information this morning, so I'm going to go over there and sign. I hope you all do the same. And Richard, I really appreciate you coming on and giving me your time and allowing me to share your story with the world out there and the people that are following me. So any last things that you want to plug or do before we sign out here?
I just want to, first off, I want to thank you for the opportunity. And, I want to close with this. The situation that I find myself in has truly renewed my faith in humanity. When you're in prison and you spend decades in prison, there's a lot of coldness. There's a lot of no empathy, no compassion. There's just a lot of darkness. And I've been around that for so long, where everybody's just so self-serving and it's all about their individual agendas. To come out here and to see the amount of support and people who have stood beside me and lifted me up and pushing for me has truly renewed my faith in humanity. So I just want to thank everybody who has been so involved with this from the beginning. And I mean, from NYU School of Law to FSU College of Law to the team at Chicago University to Columbia, all points, everybody has just been so supportive. And that gives me hope for tomorrow, especially with the state of affairs that we're currently in this country. So thank you to everybody for your support, your love, and sharing this message and doing all you can to help me. Much appreciation.
Awesome, man. Thank you. And also, I want to apologize for the phone interruption there. That wasn't very cool, but I thought these were actually people that you talked to, so I thought they were calling me for a reason, and I realized that they weren't. So apologize for that.
Quite all right.
I'm not unprofessional. It just wasn't what I thought it was. So anyways, you can also, find my podcast. I do the live stream on Facebook Live and also YouTube Live, but this will also jump onto my podcast platforms as well, like iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. All of those other ones will be there shortly. And let me see here. And then also too, if you want to share this, you can go to my Facebook profile page, and you can share that from there to timeline or to a group. And you can also start a what is that called? It is a watch party too as well. So that's another way that you can do it. And then, as soon as I release this as an episode on the podcast platform, I'll send you the links to that as well in your email. So once again, I just want to thank Richard for giving me his time and sharing his story as well as his situation with us. And I hope that we can help you in return.
Well, thank you very much. And it's been an honor to speak with you and to be on your show.
Awesome, brother. Thank you. Take care. We will be in touch.
All right. Thank you.
All right.